April 2020, according to the Pew Research Center, while a plurality of Americans, 43%, say the new coronavirus most likely came about naturally, nearly 3 in 10, 29%, said it most likely was created in a laboratory. And today, according to the Wall Street Journal, there are two competing hypotheses. Some believe the novel coronavirus probably escaped from a laboratory in Wuhan. Others maintain the virus first jumped to people from caged animals at a Wuhan seafood market. The situation is truly a complex conundrum. And when dealing with public health crises, no matter the enormity or scope, at the beginning of the 20th century, Supreme Court Justice John Marshall Harlan had suggested in the case of Jacobson v. Massachusetts that only competent evidence that could be presented to a court to prove these propositions was the testimony of experts giving their opinions. Only some 43% of Americans even possess a baccalaureate degree, but as many as 74% of residents in Arlington, Virginia, over the age of 25 possess at least a baccalaureate degree, ranked 14th in the nation for holders of advanced degrees, and it bears the distinction of being home to the most government scientists. Today even boasting a 74% compliance rate for what have been described popularly and by the government as the safe and effective vaccines. The solution that had been promoted by the American president's former top medical advisor. According to Al Jazeera, at the beginning of the public health crisis, Anthony S. Fauci, MD, has become the trusted voice in the United States in separating fact from fiction. And in July 2021, abruptly he had announced his plans to retire by the end of President Joe Biden's current term in office. The government's top infectious disease expert told CNN, and that month, around that time, Dr. Fauci stated, "I keep an open mind and say that we should consider all possibilities until we definitively prove one." He said, "But I, together with many highly qualified vaccinologists and virologists, I mean including a recent paper by 21 internationally renowned virologists and evolutionary biologists from all over the world, indicate that, although we can keep an open mind that it's possible that it could be, as they say, a lab leak, that the most likely explanation is natural evolution from an animal reservoir to a human. Once you say that, which I believe is more likely, you've got to make sure you emphasize that you still keep an open mind for all possibilities, including the lab leak." Similarly, not long after the world marked the first anniversary of the pandemic declaration, finding over 527,000 American fatalities attributed to a novel coronavirus, more American fatalities than both world wars, the conflict in Southeast Asia, and the terror attacks on 9/11. According to the American president, the U.S. intelligence community had coalesced around two likely scenarios, but had not reached a definitive conclusion on this question. Described thusly, while two elements in the IC lean toward the former scenario, and one leans more toward the latter, each with low or moderate confidence, the majority of elements do not believe there is sufficient information to assess one to be more likely than the other. Either or, one or the other, but nothing definitive or conclusive, just about the source and purported cause of global devastation, finding just in Virginia alone, as a result of the lockdown orders, unemployment claims catapulting immediately tenfold in just the first week, which according to Axios had brought the equivalent of a Hurricane Katrina in every state, in addition to sickness, death, fear, confusion, and despair, which have been historically associated with public health crises, according to the Data Institute of the University of San Francisco. Surely with the advanced technology and medicine that had implemented Operation Warp Speed to produce the amazing vaccines in record time, the answer to such a basic and fundamental question should not be this daunting and unsolvable, but that has not yet proven to be the case in over 3 years. And according to Dr. Rochelle Walensky, the CDC director, this virus isn't stupid. While the scientific community, almost with a monolithic and unanimous voice, have offered the explanation that the COVID-19 pandemic has been the result of a natural occurrence, a zoonosis caused by a contact between a still unknown zoonotic source with a human host, there have been some prominent dissenters. For instance, in May 2021, a member of the State Department team whose investigation into the origins of the coronavirus was halted by the Biden administration claimed it was sort of ridiculous to believe the virus passed naturally from animals to humans. Additionally, Sir Richard Dearlove, who was head of MI6 from 1999 to 2004, told the Daily Telegraph that Birger Sorensen and Angus Dalglish's research shows that the pandemic may have started at the Wuhan Institute of Virology. And he added that he thought it unlikely to have been released deliberately, but that China had clearly tried to cover up the release. However, intelligence sources from Britain's MI5 dismissed the idea as rumor and conspiracy. Similarly, Dr. Robert Redfield, the former director of the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, told CNN he believes the coronavirus originally escaped from a lab in Wuhan, China. What is the truth? Could it be so difficult to discover the truth? On the anniversary of the pandemic declaration, the American president had assured us all that we know what we need to do to beat this virus. Tell the truth, follow the scientists and the science, work together, put trust and faith in our government to fulfill its most important function, which is protecting the American people. No function more important. On the first anniversary of the pandemic declaration, the American president had assured us all that it's never, ever a good bet to bet against the American people. America is coming back. The American president had said that the development, manufacture, and distribution of the vaccines in record time is a true miracle of science. It is one of the most extraordinary achievements any country has ever accomplished. And we also saw the Perseverance rover land on Mars. Stunning images of our dreams that are now a reality. Another example of the extraordinary American ingenuity, commitment, and belief in science and one another. But still, the origins of a novel coronavirus is just only one of the lingering questions, even as the emergency declaration for that crisis comes to an end, and as the Wall Street Journal is demanding a congressional inquiry. And they insist that to get to the bottom of this problem and to finally solve what continues to remain a mystery, that testing either hypothesis would require access to Wuhan lab records, biological samples, and personnel, as well as frozen blood samples collected in 2019 by various Wuhan blood banks. The position that the American Secretary of State, Anthony Blinken, had taken during his interview with Axios in June 2021. And nothing has changed since then, except recent tensions with China. And as Secretary of State Blinken prepares to meet once again with the Chinese leaders in Beijing, after brief tensions arising from alleged spy balloons, the Wall Street Journal still maintains that the malfeasance of the Chinese rulers is the primary reason the international community doesn't have access to these resources and data. Full access to the lab, the only answer. The Wall Street Journal claims that since the early days of the pandemic, Chinese officials have systematically destroyed samples, hidden records, imprisoned citizen journalists asking questions about the pandemic's origins, and enforced a gag order on scientists. According to the Wall Street Journal, Beijing also has refused to provide requested data to the World Health Organization and condemned calls by WHO Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus for a full international audit of Wuhan labs. So, are the Chinese to blame, as the Wall Street Journal says? Is that the scientific answer? The same equivocations and casting blame that has left Americans divided on this divisive issue Science should not be political, but on all appearances, that is all that scientists are discussing now. Politics. Just politics, and amongst Americans, months of discord about the coronavirus epidemic have transformed the cloth mask into a potent political symbol, touted by Democrats as a key part of communal responsibility, labeled by some GOP leaders as a sign of government overreach, and as a scarlet letter pinned on the week, according to the Washington Post. Divided and conquered, still by what had been early described as an invisible enemy, as well as by Dr. Ralph Northam, the former Virginia governor, as a biological war that he was then fighting, while the president, on the first anniversary of the pandemic, declaration had placed the nation on what he had expressly described to the American people as a war footing, not just hyperbole, and telling them the truth, he said. I believe it's one of the most ghostly manifestations that I've ever seen. Whether it is real or simply conjecture, one of those things that people seeking to find some mystery fool themselves into believing, but with some other perfectly rational cause, is a question that only you can answer. Impossible. So was Xeroxing and holography just a few years ago. In fact, so were videotape replays like the one you're watching right now. People have been proclaiming the marvels of science for thousands of years, and maybe one day we will finally discover the origins of this novel coronavirus. What a tremendous gain that would be for science, and what a tragic loss for storytelling. And be sure to join us next time as events evolve with science in a near-ending pandemic determination that has yet, as of yet, with an estimated 15 million dead worldwide, leaves still many unanswered questions, including exactly how this virus that isn't stupid had, without a prescient thought, and merely through natural selection, managed so quickly and absolutely to have conquered the entire world. This briefing is unclassified. This advertisement was authorized by Mike Webb.